Welcome back to NM Adventure and Tales. I got another story for you. This one comes from Los Alamos, New Mexico, and the title is Pedro de Urdemalas. Let's get to it, guys. Oh my, that Pedro de Urdemalas. What a bad man he was. He spent all his life swindling his employers, tricking honest people into giving him meals, and wheedling folks into paying his debts. Sometimes he walked about dressed as a beggar so that people would give him alms. It was one of these times that he did his only good deed. Pedro was traveling down the road toward Los Alamos in New Mexico when he stumbled upon a poor old beggar man who was in rags worse than the ones Pedro was wearing. Pedro felt badly for such a fellow, and when the man begged for alms, Pedro gave him all the money in his pocket. Well, this poor beggar man happened to be St. Peter in disguise. He asked Pedro how he might reward him. Thinking this was a joke between beggars, Pedro asked for a pack of cards that would never lose, a flute and drum that would make people dance until he said stop, and a large greasewood bush into which he could throw his creditors and not release them until they forgave his debts. Those are very worldly wishes, said the disguised St. Peter. Do you have any heavenly ones? Pedro considered the matter and then said, When I knock on the pearly gates, I want St. Peter to let me in, no matter what. Done, said the old beggar, transforming into the tall white-robed figure of St. Peter. So that wicked Pedro de Urdemalas gambled with his magic cards in every town he came to until all the good men were broke. He played the fiddle and made everyone dance while he emptied their pockets of money and jewels. And whenever creditors came after him, Pedro threw them into the greasewood bush, where they lay in discomfort until they forgave his debts. When it came time for Pedro to die, he met death with a pack of cards in his hands. They played around with the magic cards, gambling for Pedro's life. And Pedro won another 10 years. After 10 years, death came back. He refused to gamble again, but when Pedro asked for a song, death permitted him to play the magic fiddle. So Pedro played, and death danced for so long that finally he promised Pedro another 10 years of life to secure his release. After another 10 years, death returned. Pedro was standing beside the greasewood bush, waiting for him, but death was on his guard. He avoided the greasewood bush and grabbed Pedro by the neck. Then, death marched Pedro down to purgatory because he had been so bad. Pedro de Urdemalas looked about purgatory for a while and decided it wasn't so bad. He quickly became the boss and would whip all the souls who tried to defy his wishes. One soul escaped to heaven and told God what was happening in purgatory. God was annoyed with Pedro and had him sent to limbo. Pedro de Urdemalas looked about limbo for a while and decided it would make a nice home if it weren't for all the unbaptized babies calling water, water as they floated about. To get some peace and quiet, Pedro rounded up the babies and tossed them into the river. They popped right back up as baptized souls and flew straight to heaven. Now, God was really annoyed with Pedro for causing so much trouble in limbo, So God sent him to hell. On his way down the long, hot road to hell, Pedro collected a bunch of crosses and other holy relics. As soon as he entered hell, all the demons ran from the crosses and relics as fast as they could go. But clever Pedro de Urdemalas had nailed them all over the doors and windows. The demons clustered into the middle of hell, wailing worse than the tormented souls. The devil finally escaped through the chimney and went right to heaven to complain to God. God was very angry now. He ordered an angel to bring Pedro to the gates of heaven. As soon as they reached heaven, Pedro ran right up to the pearly gates and knocked. St. Peter appeared. Pedro de Urdemalas said, "Let me in, St. Peter, just as you promised." So St. Peter had to let him in. God had had enough of Pedro de Urdemalas. "Pedro," he said, "I am going to turn you into a rock." "A rock with eyes," Pedro said quickly, and God agreed. So Pedro de Urdemalas became a rock with eyes, and he stands to this day just inside the pearly gates and watches the new souls entering heaven. I guess Pedro de Urdemalas got his last wish, which was to be a rock with eyes. Some wish, huh? Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that story and come back for more. I will definitely be digging around the books and trying to find you some more fun and exciting stories, especially as we get closer to Halloween. You'll have a great day and take care.